Hello, I am Jan from Prague, currently in Britain, and this is a slightly experimental video. On my trip to London, I tested how the Sony a7 IV captures HDR photos using the HEIF format with high dynamic range. So please watch this on a good quality display so the glowing clouds and vibrant colors really stand out. We'll look at when this approach makes sense, not only in the streets of London, but also at the famous Sony World Photography Awards exhibition. Let's get into it. So let me sum up what actually am I doing right now. I'm in London testing Sony a7 IV in HDR mode. I'll explain all the technical details, but what matters now is that once you start doing that, you actually open completely new world, because you are able to capture all these shadows, all these lights, all these clouds, all these colors, and it's just amazing. I am really tempted for a long time to do this because I am testing a lot of mobile phones, and very often what happens is that you have great results in the device, but then it's very hard to show it to the public. And I was really lucky because I was in the very center of London when thing called Tweet Run was going on. So I was able to capture hundreds of these amazing bicycles. And you can clearly see that for photographers, this is just a dream. Colors, interesting place, interesting people. If you see these photos for the first time, you might be saying, well, this is somehow strange. Why should it be so shining? Isn't it some strange trick? But it's not. It's just HDR capture when we are really able to get a huge dynamic range. So even if it might look a bit strange, like if you look at the lady here, the camera is simply able to capture information in shadow, so you can clearly see what's in shadow, and still the clouds are glowing. What is interesting though is that when you start thinking about these photos, you'll be struggling with a very simple question like, should I make the face lighter? Should I get the lady's face out of the shadows? Typically, we would do it in a normal photograph, but look at this. I mean, if you see these photos, you are still able to see pretty much everything. So maybe in the future, we'll really have to reevaluate what do we consider to be a good exposition, what do we consider to be a good photo. Like here, this is without any edits, this is slightly edited, and here I just push it a little bit more. Which of the versions is best? Well, I don't know. It's the charm of the new era of HDR. Once more, once again, we can lighten up the face, but do we really want to do it? Well, I leave this open. Certainly, this was a fantastic opportunity to take some nice photos in the very center of London. How do we set all this? We go to menu, image quality, and we are able to turn off JPEGs and turn on HEIFs or HEIFs, whatever you like. And also what we need to do is to go here and activate this option, HLG still image, which means that we are asking the camera to produce HDR photos. But once you see these shots in your gallery, in your camera, you won't see the HDR because the HDR requires perfect display. But be careful, it's very addictive. Once you start playing with that, once you start watching these photos on a great display, you'll be lost forever. This is famous Sony World Photography Awards exhibition. And by the way, that lady is the winner of the Photographer of the Year 2026. Her name is Fabian, and I was very lucky to take these photos. But once we are studying HDR options, what might be even more interesting is the set of the photos I was taking here. And the guy is a very famous American photographer, Joel Meyerowitz, who was awarded the title Outstanding Contribution to Photography. He serves as a great example of the question, like, do we want to edit the photos in the old way? Like, should we lighten shadows? Well, the HDR actually leaves this open. This is a shot from the gala evening when Fabian was announced to be the winner. I can imagine that you might really be a bit lost. So let me show you some more examples. So the key principle is that we are working in HDR world. It means that your camera and your computer and the video you are going to produce perhaps will have wider dynamic range. You can clearly see it here. This is a normal range, and once you activate by clicking on this HDR button in Lightroom, you are able to do the tricks we were doing a couple of minutes ago. Now we should clarify what HEIF is. Of course, we are able to shoot into JPEGs, we are able to shoot to RAW, and yes, of course, RAWs would always be the best choice. But look at the numbers. The JPEG, which is very old, very outdated format, has 7 megabytes, RAW would have like 35, and HEIF would only have 4. It has 10 bits, so it's able to capture much wider range of colors. It's able to work in HDR. Plus, it has much better compression. So for certain situations, it can really be tempting to work with it. Of course, the RAW would always be the king. By the way, this is a RAW in Lightroom, and again, you can clearly see the advantage of HDR. The colors in the histogram correspond with the colors in the picture, and you clearly see that compared to normal photography, we are really able to get much wider dynamic range. One more technical point: once you edit the photos in Lightroom, for instance, you'll need to export them, and you have a broad range of options. But if you want to keep the HDR touch, the best results I was able to get was to export them in HEIF. This, again, very modern format, but that was not what I was doing. In this video, I wanted to really do the strictest possible way. So I was editing photos in HLG format. So what you see in this video is really exact representation of what I was receiving from the camera. And let me give you a couple of more examples, because this is so interesting. Again, shadows, colors, clouds, interesting, happy people wanting to show up what is happening in London. And once again, if you see these colors, they are amazing. But look at the direction of the sunshine. We are shooting towards sun most of the time. In the old days, shots like that would basically be impossible. Yes, we can edit them, we can edit the shadows out to be lighter, but thanks to HDR, we are able to produce photos which are incredibly interesting and which are able to keep a certain level of realism even in situations like this. Some more less dramatic examples: a meeting of old car owners, really nice people, but you know, the spring sun can be really tricky. So again, a lot of shades, a lot of shadows, but at the same time, a lot of colors, incredibly interesting opportunities for photographers, well, who are experimenting with a great camera and very specific tool called HDR. Perfect for situations like that. This is one of the first HDR photos I took in London, and I was really impressed how the Canadian flags are just shining, and at the same time, I am able to keep the information hidden in shadows like that. You can clearly see Paddington. Obviously, that would also open broad possibilities for street photography and pretty much any photography you would like to do. What should not be forgotten, though, that it's incredibly interesting for shots like that when I'm able to first use HDR options to show you the results. But you should know that once you decide, okay, I'm going to print that shot, that you'll be disappointed, because it's virtually impossible to print the result, to get exactly what you see here on your display, on your piece of paper. So yes, there are many limits. Another of them would be if you are watching that on a normal display, normal television, normal computer, you might be even disappointed, because not only that the lights will not be glowing, they might look pale, terrible, not interesting at all. So yes, there are many troubles, there are many issues, but still, for me, this is something which shows new approaches, shows new opportunities, and frankly, once you start playing with that, once you open the world of HDR, it's very hard to go back. And well, this is the final stop of our trip. I hope you enjoyed my short introduction to HDR and fantastic people of London. Take care. I'm Jan from Prague, the Czech Republic.